Good Wednesday afternoon. This is Backstory with Dawn Lawrence. How are you doing out there? Today in studio, we have artist and musical artist Johnnie Kaylor. How are you?
I'm
Welcome.
doing well. Thank you, Don. Hello.
Well, let's dive right into what you all just heard, a track called Kickin'. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that song was recorded, I believe it was 2006. It was on an album called Keep On Pushin' that we did. And that was just kind of a piece I just kind of came up with it live at a session one day. And it's like got a kind of little bit of a Molly Hatchet twist to it.
Yeah, it does.
With a little bit of a Allman Brothers kind of theme to it. It's got a lot of really interesting movements to it.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely one of the better live songs.
Great stuff. Well, why don't we talk about how you get started with what you're doing, at least musically. We'll kind of go into the art as well, but how did you get started musically?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I've been playing since I was 11. So I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and I grew up around guys like Ripper Owens, who played with Judas Priest and now has his own records out. It's just doing really, really fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Matthews and Freddie Salem from the Outlaws are all very good friends of mine, really accomplished artists. So, I kind of came up through the, cut my teeth in Akron in the clubs. And, I've done a lot of touring and things like that, obviously over the years. But, so I've been at it for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, how long did you stay in Akron?
I was kind of in and out of Akron for 20 years or so. When we weren't on the road, we all, that was kind of our home stop. So we'd end up back there a lot at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So, the guys I grew up around up there were like Joe Walsh and Phil Kagi, who a lot of people haven't heard of, but was one of the most amazing guitarists on the planet. And, even some of the cats that were a little older than me would say, they used to go see Joe Walsh in the clubs up in Kent State for $2. So Northeastern Ohio was, pretty vibrant musical area. Other people like Neil Zaza, who's a great instrumental guitarist, does a lot of instrumental guitar records, like myself. So, it's just really a great place to kind of learn how to play and be around some really great players.
Where did you pick up a guitar for the first time? How did that happen?
That's a good question. I think I started playing bass actually when I was really little. And then I think I seen some people playing a gold top Les Paul, and I said, man, I got to learn how to play guitar. But I still have a couple pictures of me just, 11, 12 years old, sitting with that old red Fender Music Man bass. And I mean, back in those days, it was really hard to learn how to play. There wasn't guitar instructional videos and, YouTube and, dial it in and you got the guitar tab to something. It wasn't the way it worked back then. You put on records and you scratch through them. You put on Led Zeppelin 2 and you just ruin that record by just trying to mimic those licks. And, a lot of the guys claim, the guitarists claim that since they learned how to play like that, through those techniques, it was so difficult that it helped train their ear better. So they feel that they're better. We kind of feel we're better musicians because we had to learn the hard way. So there may be some truth to that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
do you prefer instrumental type stuff?
yeah, I mean, it's funny you brought that up because I never really started out. I tell my friends a lot, I never really started out to be an instrumental guitarist, a guitar god, or anything like that. I just wanted to be in a band. And, the guys I idolized, my favorite guitarist was Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page and Johnny Winters. And there's just the list goes on and on. But
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your visual arts. Did you start that as young as you did the musical art?
yeah, it's funny with being an artist because the whole story with me is pretty simple. I was like, I think 5 or 6 years old, and I drew a picture of Jesus carrying this cross because I used to love these just morbid things when I was little to draw. I guess with pencil or charcoal, whatever I used. And I remember the teacher telling me, it must have been maybe my first grade teacher, And she was just, really nice. It's astonishing. I got to put this in the art show. I got to show this to people. And then I never pursued it. But I always had that gift. And then when I got older, one day I just sat down and I said, I'm going to do this again. And I just painted this, like 8x8 canvases, And,
Man, yeah.
And I remember people saying, yeah, sure, you can paint, and them come over to the house and go, how did you do that? So to me, it's a total gift.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really believe that it's a gift from God, and I'm just channeling, the images through my hands through Him. I mean, there's a higher power for sure, because I have no training or anything like that. I think you had said you'd seen some of the pencil work and
Yes.
some of that stuff. So it's kind of uncanny. But one thing I found out about the art, because growing up younger, I used to think I was an artist.
Mm-hmm.
I painted, and I was a musician. And then finally I figured out that it's all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see a repetition of my paintings just like you'll see a repetition of my songs, which, I'm creating my own style.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So it's taken me probably the whole time I've been playing to create my own guitar technique, or my own sound.
Mm-hmm.
You hope to think when you hear it, you go, oh, that's Johnny playing, or, you hope to
Yeah.
hear the difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's hear some more. I think we have Mahogany Man coming up.
Yeah,
want-
this is a song I wrote for Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush.
Ah.
Frank Marino, one of my favorite idol guitar player of all time, amazing guitarist. And so I wrote this one for Frank. It's called Mahogany Man.
And we're back. This is Backstory with Dawn Lawrence and our guest in studio today, Johnnie Kaylor. Why don't we pick up where we were, kind of talking about back in the day and, what brought you through touring to come to Florida? And
Yeah, I mean, I've played in probably most every state in the union. I never got up in that corner up in Seattle, up in that area. So I've never been up in that northern California, Oregon, which I always wanted to go. I think it'd be beautiful out there. Been in a lot of diverse places, played a lot of different situations, played a lot of people, played a lot nobody.
yeah.
But I think, you reach a point in your life where you do it because you love to do it, and guys like me, I mean, we're born with it. We live with it every day. We're like junkies, man, when it comes to, I couldn't quit playing music if I wanted to. So, I mean, some of the big things that are happening right now with me is with the Butt music group out of UK.
Ah.
Yeah, and Gary Bird, who's with Bird Management, and Gary's out of South Beach, Miami.
Yeah.
So a lot of the direction has been focused more towards Europe. Obviously, Gary's partners and everybody's in UK. So Europe's involved. But what Gary has been on the cutting edge of moving into Russia and St. Pete and Moscow.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Gary's been in the music industry for 30 years. He works with guys like John Lordy from Deep Purple, Rick Wakeman from Yes, and people like that. And they'll be at the Meta show in Cannes.
Yeah.
I think it's recently coming up. I've always wanted to go there. Just amazing music industry show. Again, called the Meta in Cannes, France. So they're moving into some different directions there. Gary's working with Irving Azoff, who's, everybody's heard of Irving, and Live Nation, to try to put some things together for these things that are going to be happening even more in Russia. So, what we're hoping is, to be able to get me out there and warming up some of these guys and really kicking some ass and rocking. So that's one thing we're, hopefully in 2012, something will happen for me so we can actually get out there and let people see what's going on.
Well, are you talking about going as a solo act or as part of Johnnie K band? Or
Yeah,
what?
it would be the Johnnie K band. Funny story too. I mean, Johnnie K, everybody would say, well, why Johnnie K? There's Bobby K and Jimmy K and the Bullets and this guy and that guy. And, I was on the road so much and nobody could ever remember my name as how that came up. People say, what's your name? Johnnie Kaylor. And they'd say, Johnny, and it'd be like, one day I just said, Johnnie K, and they went, oh, yeah, Johnnie K, we get it. I actually went back to using my own name again, so it's the Johnnie Kaylor band now again. Kind of got burnt out on the Johnnie K thing.
Yeah.
But it is simpler and kind of a shortcut that people like to take,
How did that band get started?
I started that band way back when. There's been many, many different versions of it. And I tried so many different things. I've played with so many different artists. And, for me, it was always going back to that. And, people would always say, it's you, man. It's you. It's your thing. So, and, we were talking about that early too, with the instrumentals and trying to be, a good guitar guy and kind of getting forced into that in some respect. Because I wanted to grow as an artist, I wanted to write songs, and I didn't want to wait for anybody. Unfortunately, I wasn't born with a great vocal voice, even though I write a lot of lyrical music, and some of the stuff on the recordings has vocals, which is another thing I'm trying to work on as well.
How do songs come to you? Because
that's a really cool question. I mean, every time anybody ever asks me now, it always reminds me of John Lennon. Excuse me, because I think it was John Lennon that said it, and I hope I'm right, that songs are in the air. And just you pick them out, but it's always there. And I think it comes back to that higher power thing. And a lot of times you got to wait for it to come. Like me, myself as a guitarist, I'll play a lot of riffs. I have several different ways I could do it. I could sit down and have a lyric and write right to the lyric. Write a more defined thing, in that respect. Right now, the way I do my stuff is I just play a lot of licks and then I kind of pull out my favorite parts and then I work them and I rework them over and over until I get them, absolutely the way I want them. But, and you can record live and you can get good ideas, just improvisational live that you'd never get through a pertinent thought. Because you'll go, I played that. What is that? It's great. So,
and definitely,
I've been kind of pushing myself lately. Because it's so easy to tell yourself, well, I got writer's block, and I just can't do this, and I can't get past this thing, and you got to kind of trick your mind to letting it
the
out.
old prime and the pump thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote a new one a couple days ago that I'm. A matter of fact, the next song that you're going to hear, Seven Star, is off the new recordings called Ruler of Time. And that's featuring Eddie Ray on bass. And I want to thank Eddie so much for setting me up down here with
with
Dawn
the interview and
yeah,
cool.
and
Thanks, Eddie.
Eddie Ray Productions, amazing bass player. So Eddie plays 6-string bass on that, and he's just devastating bass lines. It was just I was really happy with everything he did. And Jeff Fall out of Tampa, who's one of the greatest rock drummers we have in the area. So Jeff's been doing a lot of recording for me too on drums. So that's some of the new stuff.
Fantastic. Well, let's hear Seventh Star then. Kaylor here in studio, and we were just having an interesting conversation while you all were listening to Seventh Star about indie labels, and you were mentioning Lion Records.
Yeah, Lion Records is one of them. Steve Vai's got a label now. I think it's called Nations. Oh gosh, I should know that. I've always been too scared to submit to him because I never thought my stuff was good enough. You just. But as an artist, you do that,
Oh, yeah. Everybody's perfectionistic about their stuff. We listen back to our stuff and go, oh.
Because we were talking about a couple of things, like back when MySpace was hot, and then that's how I found all the European bands and all the great bands from Sweden and all these countries, just amazing progressive artists, over in Europe and even South America. We talked about Ripper. I mean, I think he's pretty big in like Mexico and South America and stuff like that. But the people at Lion Records, great label, sign a lot of instrumental guitarists. There's a lot of those labels, in Europe, out of Italy, places like that. Alex Mesai, I think, was like the greatest Italian guitarist. Of course, now you got all the kids that are even greater players. But the problem with a lot of those guys was that there's so much pirating going on, and nobody's buying records. And for them to sign an instrumental artist, it's hard for them to move units. So at least that's the story I kind of got from them. But I don't know.
Well, I guess if you're the label, you're not as involved with touring, which seems to be where everybody's making their money, as you would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really got to be kind of like an all in one thing. If
there's all those guys, like there would be guys like Al Di Meola, which a lot of people heard of, or Greg Howe, Tony McAlpine, all those kind of guys. And really, if you go to their website and look at their tour schedules, they're playing a lot in Europe, which is pretty good.
Good for them.
Yeah,
that's so
Madrid.
Good for us here. I don't know why on earth, concerts aren't selling out, or I don't know what's going on. But
well, even the management group, had mentioned, and my feelings were as an artist, we feel like we've been just thrown under the bus here. We don't feel like we're getting the respect that we deserve as artists in some respect, at least on a local level, that, that to be able to have that diversity that in Europe, if you're an artist or a musician, you're a pretty cool guy. I mean, you're a pretty respected person. Where I've always felt like through my life, musician, drug addict, loser, drummer without a girlfriend, homeless, but it's not really true over there. It's a whole different thing. So you look outside of the box. I mean, I guess my point is, when you see all the guys that are kind of doing what I do, and that's where they're doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, some people that I know, right here, Todd LaTorre.
Sure.
He's over there, I don't know, like 4 or 5 times a year, it seems like. And
over Far East, too. Korea. I know Neil Zaza was doing some stuff recently in Korea. And, of course, Japan. I've been watching a lot of video, and I was watching like Marty Friedman, who's the guitarist from Megadeth, who has his own, instrumental guitar band, just amazing guitarist, really. And, just doing stuff in Japan and just selling out.
Places where people are spending the bucks. And I guess that's gotta be the point. Well, let's go to one more track. Standalone, is it? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, Standalone. E-Mixolydian. Pretty good drummer. Joe Lopez on drums. Roger Malloy on bass, and Todd Gillian on keyboards. On the Keep on Pushing record. And this song was kind of weird because the reason it's called Standalone is I was alone for a long time. I went through a divorce, and I went through the whole 5-year deal. And I reached this point where, you got to stand alone. And, it's hard sometimes with instrumental music to get that across, but then people go, oh, I get it. That's why it's called Standalone.
And we're back. This is Backstory with Dawn Lawrence and Johnnie Kaylor. And let's talk about how your fans can find out what's going on with you. You had mentioned one website where, get your pens, people. It's JOHNNIEK.com. And what can we find there?
You'll see, you can get the CDs there. You can get ringtones from the store there. You can also connect through Reverb Nation. Pop over to our Facebook page and add us as a friend. And hook up with the community here. We have a really pretty good sized community from, the Tampa Bay area. Of course, all over the world. So I think Phil Keaggy's on.
Oh, cool. I'll have to look him up. Shoot, man! But you've got some of your art links on there too. I'm pretty sure.
All the art is on there. All the oil paintings and the pencils as well. Yeah. So you can view everything there. You can even shoot me an email. If you want a mural done or something.
Do you sell copies of those?
I do actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the prints are available.
Oh, especially the portraits of rock stars. Oh
Sure.
my God, they are right on.
Yeah, I think our most recent one I did was Joe Cocker from back in the day, and Janis Joplin. Yeah. So what I do, because real quick, when I was telling you before, when I draw the pencils, I'll play the music. So if I'm doing Joplin, I got to listen to 4 or 5 albums of Joplin back to back. Yeah, and just listen to it over and over, and you really get that whole thing evoking, and emulating onto the paper. So
yeah, and then the paintings, the color paintings, those are just kind of out there. Some of them, it seems like really fanciful and
yeah,
cool looking. Well, let's talk some more about where you want to take your music now?
Well, that's a pretty tough question. I mean, again, it's just really growing as an artist. I mean, I'm trying to move a little bit heavier in the guitar movements. Up to this point, the rhythms have been not so direct, not so more like a Ronnie Montrose kind of heavy, fat guitar rhythm-y sound. When I use a lot of guitars live, of course, you're not going to hear all those guitar tracks, but the live performance is completely different than the studio versions. So when people hear me play, on recordings, they may say, well, yeah, it's really good. Like the guitar, it's happening. But to see me play it, I think it's a whole nother experience, when they actually see you do it and, you're putting all that emotion into it and really, So I think the best example was Hendrix.
Huh.
I mean, who could create like Electric Ladyland, which is just this beautiful album recording, and then turn around and just play Purple Haze live and just be like, wow, is this the same guy? So just playing live is a big part of it.
Speaking of which, I should have asked you about your calendar, your upcoming calendar. Sorry to hit you over the head with that.
Well, we got a lot of things coming up. I think we may have something coming up with Eddie Way Productions, at State Theater. So that's something that's on the burner. But just as soon as we get something in place, we'll post it.
So pretty much just go to johnniek.com to keep up
See any
with
updates or what's going on. You can see all the art, the videos, listen to the music, and check everything out.
Yeah. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about the Crying Hearts video? That was really something. You moved my friends to tears with some of that.
Yeah, we had talked about that a little bit before the show, and actually, I produced the video myself, and it was really, really graphic. And because I wrote that song with Roger Malloy, and I had that song in the can. Because we talked earlier, too, about putting little ideas down on tape or,
Where they go away.
anything you can get.
Yeah.
And we had dug that out of the archives, thank God. And we actually put it together. And it's about, war in general. The video touches on, the Iraq conflict and in Vietnam and just really everything. But it was really graphic, and we couldn't get it aired locally. None of the networks really wanted to touch it because it was so graphic. And I didn't want to cut it. I mean, I never cut it down to a softer version because it's what it is. It's real.
Yeah.
Guys laying with their legs ripped off and, women that have lost their husbands and their sons and just, so that's what that song's about. I think Roger says war is not the answer, and it's not. So that's a pretty heavy hitter there,
It really is. Well, we're going to go out with Crying Heart, so just let me...
this track, we did two. There's two of them. There was one that was actually recorded on the Keep on Pushing record with Joe Lopez on drums. And this was done at another session with just Todd Gillian, Roger Malloy, and myself on guitars, acoustic guitars. I don't think I did any electric guitars on this at all. I think it's all acoustic with Raj singing and stuff and the piano. So it just had a tendency to. It's a little cut down, shorter version. I think the longer one had like an extended end, like more your Stairway to Heaven type ending.
Yeah,
if you will. All right, mate.
Well, before we go into that song, I just want to thank you for coming on down, and we'll look forward to seeing whatever you're going to do next.
Thanks so much, Don, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again.
Watching the TV one morning, and to my surprise, I couldn't believe I saw it, I couldn't believe my eyes. War is not the answer. Death is not the cure. Love is the only answer. And I know this for sure. Crying There's so much joy and there's so much pain that I can't tell the difference between the sun and the rain. War is not the answer. Death is not the cure. Love is the only answer. And I know that's for sure. Children crying, mothers in so much pain, while their fathers dying. Fighting a war we cannot change. War is not the answer.